Hi, I'm so glad that we are going to be together again tonight because I want to talk to you tonight about intuition. And I'm going to wait for a bit. Let's wait until a few more people have joined us. But intuition and its connection to joy, that's what I really want to be chatting about tonight, and also getting your questions. Hi, Claire. I see you there. Because I've never seen anyone who isn't intuitive, and yet I know a lot of people who think they're not intuitive. So we're going to be really having a look at that and how intuition is hardwired into your. Yeah, so it's a great topic. Rachel, Carla, got a change today, got water tonight. Hi, Carol. And this definitely is intuition and joy. Wow, it's a massive, massive topic. So it's one that we're going to touch on. It really relates back into the Facebook Live that I did a couple of weeks ago on living in power and joy. So you'll see similar themes coming through here. Got lots of hellos coming in. Hi, Rachel and Ewan. So a big hello from Wales from Claire, and from Ewan too. All right, because intuition is something that is an absolute natural ability in everybody. Absolutely everybody. Some people have more natural ability for sure. So some people are intuitive and they've always worked with that part of themselves that isn't necessarily logical. Okay, that's all intuition means. It's knowing something or being attuned to something that isn't held in the logical aspect of our life or the logical part of your brain. So intuition is all of those other places that we get a sense of. In our modern language, we'll still talk about having just a gut hunch, something, a gut feeling, we get a sense of something. All of those are modern ways of the deep understanding of our wisdom ways of knowing, which is what I would call our intuition. And of course, one of the beautiful parts in our life is to weave together both ways of knowing. So the wisdom way and the logical, modern, rational way of being. And when we can really weave those together, then cool, we've got some real cohesion happening in our energy fields and in our life. We've got that moving and weaving together of the head and the heart. And I'd even pop in there the soul, because when we work with intuition, we get closer and closer to the depth of ourselves. And that's why it's such an exciting topic. And you can also see there that if I'm saying that intuition and the logical and rational together helps us get closer and closer to the depth of ourselves, why it's really connected to joy. Because at the core of you is radiance, at the core of you is joy. And when you're able to travel easily on those pathways to the center of yourself and to the further reaches of yourself, then that joy is a very, very easy pathway to access, and not frivolous joy, although there's nothing wrong with frivolous joy, but that's not quite what I'm talking about. I'm talking about that joy that radiates from the depth of you, that endless bubbling well of contentment, of compassion, of understanding that you're never alone, that you're always supported, that you have an essential place within this beautiful framework of life. Hi, so we're seeing Vicky is saying reception is tricky. Well, I really hope that it comes in fine. And Ewan, I'm suspecting that you're saying good evening in Welsh, so I won't even try to murder those words back to you, but good evening in all languages. So feel free to ask any questions as well. When we have such a big topic, then it's great for me to see what questions that you're wondering about with your intuition, and see where I can guide you with that. And this is the first of 2 Facebook Lives around intuition, and in 2 weeks' time, which is the date, the 27th of August, is going to be one on empathic feelings and the joy of being an empath. Empath, if you are an empath, I am, and I know that many of you will be, then you have the ability to really not only perceive what other people are feeling or experiencing, but actually you feel and experience it as well. The boundaries between your energy fields and another person's energy field, or the energy field of a room or a supermarket or whatever, the boundaries aren't as strong as in some other people. So it can become very overwhelming. And so that place of learning how to work with your energy fields so that you're always in a place of resiliency, that's what we're going to be doing in 2 weeks' time. Hi, Celia. Nice to see you there. And Karuni, wonderful. Lots of great community here, and that brings me joy. All right, so intuition. Let's have a little think. You are hardwired for intuition. Every energy system is geared towards you having information that is being processed in your energy fields at all times. So that means you can never be separate from intuition. You can be separate from interpreting it, okay? So for those of you who feel, oh, I never get an intuitive hit, or when I have an intuitive feeling about something, it never comes to anything, then actually it's simply because for whatever reason, you're not feeling connected to where that wisdom resides in your system. And that's a really, really fundamental understanding to take. You are intuitive. Your intuitive knowledge, your wisdom way of knowing is hardwired in your system. It's being held in certain pockets in your energy fields. It's just that you haven't traveled the pathways to find it easily. And quite frankly, no surprise. There would not have been lessons, I suspect, in your school or in your home life of how to access and nurture your intuition. Very, very few people have those kind of lessons in life. It's much more, we get much more geared towards our left brain way of thinking. We get asked to find the logic, the facts, the rationale behind decisions. And that's all beautiful. They're all very, very powerful, important strategies and understandings, but it can become very one-sided. And if you're sensitive or intuitive, or if you just have a feeling, that can often be dismissed. And that's the way in which your experiences that you would have had as a younger person, every young person is incredibly intuitive. So the feelings you would have had as a younger person might not have been supported or validated. They might even have been ridiculed, in which case you quite quickly learn not to go through those pathways, not to find them, not to listen to those wisdom ways that you hold within you at all times. So often it's simply through experiencing. You have learned to not know intuitively, which is very different than not knowing, yeah? Your wisdom is there and you can access it. The pathway between your rational knowing and that wisdom way of knowing might have become a path less trodden, yeah? So it means finding the ways to enhance that, to reconnect into it. And one of the big, big ways to do that is to have some time to do so. And that might sound incredibly easy or incredibly trite, but actually asking yourself, if I knew the answer to this question, if is a really beautiful word to find those pathways back. If I knew the answer to this question in front of me, if I knew it already, what would it be? Would it be a yes? Would it be a no? Would it be a red? Would it be a blue? Whatever the question is that you have in your life at that moment. Asking the big if is a beautiful way to start being back in contact with those pathways of intuition, the access route into your wisdom way of knowing. And you can come to intuition as an experiment, as a play, as a game. Intuition often, well, always includes all of your senses. So it means it's a big, big field that you're playing within. Sometimes I've seen intuition being taught as if it's a a narrow pathway, yeah, and you gotta fight, you gotta track, you gotta trudge to find that insight. And I would offer that it's very, very different than that. That almost the more you can come back into yourself, the quieter you can be in your place of inquiry, the more you can think, if I could hear something right now, what could I hear? If I could see something right now, what could I see? If I could feel something right now, what would I feel? That big if really is a beautiful way to start exploring that intuitive pathways. Let's see if there's any questions. Hi, Janie, Valerie, Vicky. You're asking a great question. So how can we plug in most effectively and trust the information we think we are receiving? That's a great question. And for the most part, it's going to be a case of being in that place of inquiry, playing with it, feeling into the big if I could hear, if I could know, if I could feel, if I could see, if I could think. Because oftentimes we might believe that thinking is rational. But so often what I see in the energy pathways in the system is that there's intuitive knowledge, there's wisdom ways of knowing, as I would call it, in your field. And if you're someone who thinks a lot, it actually comes through the chakras in the top, it gets processed through the brain. So oftentimes when I'm teaching energy perception and enhanced intuition, people say, oh, I think I'm just thinking it. But often you are, because what's behind the thought is intuition. It's not a logical thought. It's something that's come in through your energy fields. So coming back to your question, Vicky, how can we plug in most effectively and trust the information that we're receiving? That trust is a really important question. And it's also a really big question, yeah? That's like, yeah, I'm teaching a 3-day class on intuition and empathy in San Diego in September, which will be live streamed. But that question pretty much does the 3-day class, yeah? So I can't answer it fully here. But as far as trusting it, that's about validation. That's about beginning to catalog, remember, store those intuitive understandings you have and observe them in your daily life. So let's say, for example, yesterday I went to a beautiful crystal warehouse and I was walking past a crystal, and this one crystal jumped out at me. I had no intention of buying the particular crystal. I didn't go in with that particular intention. But this one just said very, very clearly, my intuition was I needed to pick this up for someone, didn't know who, but for someone. So brought it home, had a feeling of who it might be for, mentioned it to her, and she said, I was just looking on a website for exactly that thing. My partner and I were going to order it. So that's an intuitive way that I could simply observe. I had a feeling, yeah, my intuition came in. I had a feeling that that crystal was being called for some reason. I went with that intuition. I then observed what happened, and that intuition was validated. So the more experiences you have like that, the more you get to understand where you can trust it. And the more you get to understand which intuitive hits aren't accurate. Because that's the other biggie, isn't it? It's beautiful to say trust your intuition, but it's got to be grounded intuition. It's got to be intuition that we're aware of is going to be working through our filters and our lenses. So let's say I really want a boyfriend, yeah? I'm very happily married. I don't want a boyfriend. But let's say I'm someone who is really in a place where I am ready to experience sharing that with a partner. And my intuition says every single man in this bar is a really decent guy. Now, that might be accurate, yeah? It really might be accurate. And it might not be. That might be my lens or my filter, really meaning that I'm not listening to the intuitive and wisdom ways of knowing. Instead of listening it, I'm kind of shouting my message of need and want much louder than I might be listening or feeling the gut feelings around whether this person is potentially a beautiful partner for me or not. Yeah, so we have to have that place of trust through experience, through validation. All right, let's see if there's any more questions. Hi, Jyotish and Anna, Yvette. Okay, Denise, you're asking a great question. I often find my mind is so busy, I just can't connect to my intuition. And so you often doubt it. Very, very normal. I'm sure that's experienced for many of you. And what I would say is give yourself one tip I've really, really found helpful in this respect. Give yourself a few minutes every day to simply write your intuition. If I say to you, oh, just tune into it, just think about it, just feel it, just hear it, just whatever it, then actually you'll find that you're too busy, or as you say, your mind's too busy to do that. If I say to you, sit down and just write, ask yourself a question, that's a really great place to focus your understanding of how to access your wisdom ways. So let's say the question is around something that you would like to bring into your life. Yeah, let's go big here. So let's say the question is, how could I experience more joy in my life? All right, let's go for a good old top level question. How could I experience more joy in my life? Now you get your pen and your paper, or your pastels and your great big piece of paper that you're going to scribble on, however it is for you, because our creative pathways are deeply connected to our intuitive ways of knowing. So however it is, you might have a tiny, tiny pen and tiny paper and do it incredibly neat because that's your way of focusing it. You might scrawl all over the place. So you got to find your ways of connecting to your intuition, but then write the answers down. If I knew the answer to that question of how do I bring the greatest joy in my life, what would it be? And Denise, what you'll find is that your mind, which is busy and chattery, can coalesce around that question, and you begin to track it through your senses. And I'd really invite you, use the big if. If I had a thought about bringing in that biggest joy in my life, what would that thought be? And then write. Don't even try and analyze any thoughts, just write. If I had a feeling about how I could bring that biggest joy in my life, what would it be? Write down what feeling. Where would that feeling be in my body? So you just start finding your pathways to your intuition. Once you've established those pathways, it's millisecond quick. Yeah, people are very skilled at accessing their intuition, can think of a thought, and before they finish the thought or the question, they've tuned into that wisdom way of knowing because the pathway is really established. So that's the objective at this point for you, Denise. Find the pathways, open them up through that writing. Lots of lovely other people joining. Catherine and Liz, Joy, Alexandra, Jill, wonderful. Hi, Claire. All right. Claire, how do we, Claire, hey, got lots of lovely ego influencing or distorting our intuition. Yeah, another great question. It really comes down to what I was just saying about observing it. Yeah, because it's quite, you start building up a pattern of where your intuitive wisdom ways of knowing was accurate or not. So like that experience I was just sharing about the crystal yesterday, that's a validation of my intuition at that point. It might have not been. I might still be here thinking, I wonder who that crystal is for. I wonder if I just liked the color of it. And yeah, maybe I just got in my, maybe that crystal's for me. Yeah. In which case, the intuitive hit I had about buying it wasn't an intuitive hit. It was me thinking, I really want that crystal and I'd like to justify it. So begin to observe. Don't be looking for the end answer. Yeah. Intuition isn't about getting a result. Intuition is about experiencing the left brain and the right brain together, the head and the heart. And actually, two parts of many, many places in yourself. So it's about experiencing your wholeness. And there's going to be times when your intuition is not accurate. And that's totally fine. That is absolutely fine. If you want to, you can take that as one step of a further exploration about what was going on there. Why was my intuition off? I know myself hormonally, when I'm in big hormonal places, then my intuition will skyrocket. I'll be the most intuitive that I am in any time of my life. And at the same time, I can be so far removed from some of my rational or logical ways of thinking that weaving them together can be difficult. Staying grounded when I'm in that deep, deep, very big place of intuitive wisdom ways. And, that makes it quite challenging for my family. In fact, only a few days ago, I was in one of those places and I cooked something lovely for dinner, really kind of tuning into lots of different things as I was cooking. And we ate the dinner, and my husband went to wash up, put the washing up bowl onto the cooker top, which was still on. And the next thing we knew, the washing up bowl was on fire. So being grounded, I most certainly would not have been grounded when I was in that big heightened intuitive place. So it is the weaving together at all times. Don't expect perfection with your intuition. It's about actually, but when I think of that, when I think about my expectations around intuition, it's something outside myself, yeah. But intuition is deeply something inside yourself. So it's about weaving your way inwards into those deeper places of connection with all aspects of yourself. With Claire, you mentioned ego. So it's with being in love with your ego, and at the same time recognizing that it has limitations in expansion because of its structures. So it's about finding that inward outward balance, the rational, the intuitive, and that place of validating. It's a very, very beautiful place as a human. So when I can talk to you about that crystal story, that's a great validation. I can feel, oh, hooray, my intuition was great. But actually, even if it wasn't, that doesn't matter. Somewhere in the big picture of my wisdom ways of knowing, an intuitive understanding came in, I picked it up, I worked for it, and I'm observing it. That's really key. Get that place of inquiry about your intuition. And it really drops some of the burden around being able to be intuitive. Okay. So Susanna, you've got a great example. My intuition in the hardware store is very clear. I did not need a certain tool for a repair project. That turned out to be correct, but 24 hours later, I realized I actually needed a different tool. I didn't ask myself that question. I love that you write that, Susanna, because that is so true. It really is about asking the questions. I teach a way that we can scan our intuition and essentially look at the questions that we might not be picking up on. Well, hopefully you're able to go back and get that tool. Liz, you recently read that to connect with your third eye with a question in mind is in essence us connecting to our mind's eye, which relays imaginings similar to those we bring into action while reading a book or memorize poetry. What are your thoughts on this theory? Yeah. Let me read that again, so I've really got it. Yeah, totally. Well, I mean, my question there is, what is the mind's eye? Yeah, the mind's eye for me is that place of information sharing. That's it. So it's a very, very powerful information storer and sharer. So the experiences that we have in all kinds of our daily life, our much bigger than daily life, our soul life, the collective memories as well, they can all come in into that third, the mind's eye area, so the third eye chakra. And yeah, it's an amazingly receptive area and an expressive area. We think of the throat as being a very expressive energy center, but the third eye is exactly the same. So that mind's eye, the place that we see behind our eyes, or for most of us, it would be behind our eyes. Some would see it much more in the center of the brain, wherever it is for you, that again, you access that pathway. Some people will even see in their mind's eye outside, off the face. Often when I get visuals on things that are occurring, there'll be almost like a little movie screen that's just being projected out of this center into here, so I can look at it with these eyes and watch what's going on. So mind's eye is different for different people, but absolutely this is a place that all of the other chakras at the deepest level in our energy system, in the energetic core, they tap into. And you can think of this place as sort of an amazing fountain of the archetypal. The archetypal imagery that comes out of this for people who perceive archetypal energy is immense. So it means anything can tap into that. You mentioned poetry there, absolutely beautiful. So the poetry taps into the archetypal and it comes in this endless fountain between the head and the heart and deep, deep, deep in the energetic core. Yeah, cool. Rob, you're asking, does clearing any chakras regularly help with being intuitive and or any meridians? Absolutely. Chakras are, I love that you bring that forward actually, Rob, because chakras are our data banks of memory. Yeah. So every experience we've ever had is in our chakras. Doesn't mean truth is in our chakras, and that's a really, really important place. There will be truth in the chakras as well, but often the memories are our personal story around an experience. Yeah. So we know that if there was a situation in which 10 people watch something happen and we ask those 10 people what happened, they'd give slightly different stories. They'd give their perception of the truth. So chakras do that. They'll hold a deeper wisdom, which we could call truth or the reality of whatever that means. But then they'll also hold that place of personal perception. And that personal perception is very key in accessing your wisdom ways of knowing. So it might well be that you have really clear energetic pathways through specific chakras, and your intuition around them will be very, very clean. Yeah, it will be accurate. It will be without too many personal filters or lenses complicating that issue. And there'll be other chakras that don't hold that type of clarity. They have taken in a message and are sending that message through your entire aura. That maybe such a message might be something like, I'm not safe in this world. Yeah. So then your intuition, if you're walking down a street, your intuition is going to be hardwired to that message, I'm not safe in this world. It's not going to be perceiving the reality of the situation around you. It's going to be projecting a message onto the intuitive pathways. So that's a place where we really do end up creating our own reality. Yeah. Which is fine if your reality is joyful and empowered and healthy. If your reality is anything other than that, then working with anything like your chakras can be beautiful because it will help balance little by little, breath by breath. It will help balance the layers, the perceptions, so that actually when you're meeting your intuitive wisdom ways of knowing, it really is in a place where you can hear, listen, feel, access that wisdom way instead of overloading or drowning it out with a different way of knowing, a learned way of knowing, a fear-based way of knowing. Often the chakras that shout most loudly are ones that hold fear. And they shout loudly, really, really intelligently, really strategically. They are keeping you alive and keeping you safe. But fear prevents you living your fullest life in every situation. So working to actually balance those chakras. And, you know, one of my most favorite ways of working to balance chakras is literally to connect them together. I always trust, and I trust it for every one of you, your energy system knows how to be healthy. It knows how to move those patterns through. It knows how to connect. All we have to do is give it the opportunity to remember. So I'm not really one for meddling with energy systems too much. Mostly I want to connect it in consciousness, and I trust it will do what it needs to do. And that's what I observe. So with chakras, one of the ways I love working is literally to connect them. So I might put one hand on the seventh chakra on the top of my head, and one hand on my sixth, the third eye, the mind's eye we just talked about. And then just breathe for a few breaths. Let's do it, by the way. It's a beautiful way to allow you to come back more and more and more into your center. Those chakras have many different layers with many different meanings. They spin in different directions. They're very busy. Chakras are astonishingly wise, busy centers of energy. So when we can just support them like this, if it doesn't feel good to you holding them with the flat of your hands, you can always just come in with 2 fingers and a thumb, or just the pads of your fingers if that feels better. And now let's go to the third eye and the throat. This is one of my favorite ways in my energy system. When I can connect my third eye and my throat, feels like that big gyroscope of balance inside my body begins to really come back on board. This is an exercise I always do after I've been teaching. When I've talked a lot and I've downloaded a lot and things have been in and out of my system really rapidly, this one brings everything back into balance. Let's come to the throat and the heart. Denise, you asked that question about quietening your mind as well, so you can access your intuition. This is another beautiful way to do it. The chakras go deep into the energetic core, right down into your essential level or your soul level. So when you hold these, you can begin to travel back through the busyness of the day, through the yang or external places you've been working, and really come back into your center. Let's go from the heart to the solar plexus. And generally, when I'm working with connecting the chakras, this is the direction I go. I go from the top down. So easy for people to unground, especially when we're working with accessing intuition, and yet our intuition needs to be deeply, deeply grounded. So we bring the wisdom of the 7 chakras, the 6th chakra, the 5th, the 4th, the 3rd, the 2nd into the 1st. Let's leave the 3rd and come to the, or let's stay on the 3rd, actually come down to the 2nd as well. Let's connect these up. Beautiful. And let's go to the root chakra as well. Such a great way to find your center and find the stillness in your energy, so that you can actually begin to really listen and explore that. Okay, well, we have gone 2 minutes over, but my goodness, it was worth it to connect with those chakras. Great questions. Really, really loved our chat tonight. And 2 weeks' time, I'll be back with working empathically, the joy and the amazing ability of being an empath. And yeah, that will be a wonderful topic to also explore. And reminding you that we're doing a 3-day live streamed class in San Diego. So if you're keen to learn more about intuition, more about that, wanting to access all of your intuition and yet wanting to be protected, overwhelmed, and as someone for whom that pathway of intuition and overwhelm was one that for many, many years I really didn't get right. I'm finally in a great place to be bringing forward those understandings. Beautiful. Thanks so much for being here and for all of your awesome questions. And see you in a couple of weeks. Bye-bye.